Hey everyone, Brandon here with ROA Off-Road. Today, we're here with the Pause Reboot. We're up in the mountains. This time, no Christmas lights, just the Reboot, because today we want to talk about why this is one of the best Four Seasons trailers on the market. Let's get into it. Now, I know that's a pretty big claim to say this is one of the best Four Seasons trailers on the market. So today, we're gonna do two things, and I'm gonna try to back up this claim throughout the video. First thing we're gonna do is go over the features and kind of some of the components that help it be a Four Seasons trailer. But then also, we're gonna put it to the test. We tried to get somewhere a little colder. We'll see exactly how cold it is in a little bit here, but we're gonna see how quickly it can warm up and get to temperature. And then we're gonna leave the heater on and we're gonna see how long it can run on one propane tank. So the first thing I wanna talk about, and one of the reasons I say it's one of the best Four Seasons trailers on the market, is these walls. Now, if you've been watching this long enough, you know that we have experience with Four Seasons trailers. From Imperial Outdoors to the other Pause models, they're all Four Seasons trailers. Now, we've pushed some units as cold as negative temperatures. We've done tests on how well they can stay warm. With the Imperial Outdoors X22, we actually got that thing to -7, -10. They claim -40. These walls are actually constructed pretty similarly to that X22, where we got it to -7, -10. It was somewhere in that range. Now, we've actually been to the wall factory where these walls are put together. So starting from the outside in, a little bit about these walls. It's a fiberglass on the outside, which is backed by Azdel. So if you don't know what Azdel is, it's a composite backing. The alternative in the RV industry is using Luan or a wood backing on fiberglass. The advantage to Azdel is it's weatherproof. There's been tests done where they put a piece of Azdel in water for 60 to 90 days and there's no change. There's no risk of rotting. It's a recycled material, so it's a little bit more eco-friendly. And it does a great job helping that fiberglass adhere to it. Now, behind that is an aluminum frame with foam insulation put in it. But that aluminum frame, that's nothing out of the ordinary. What is out of the ordinary is there's actually a vapor barrier. So you'll see there's foam and then there's an aluminum extrusion, but in between the extrusion and where the wall is, there's a vapor barrier. So what that does is helps to eliminate thermal bridging in this unit. So what thermal bridging is, if you haven't watched our channel before, it's when a piece of material, typically metal, allows heat to conduct through it and escape more easily. When you want a trailer with good insulation, you want as little thermal bridging as you can. Every trailer has thermal bridging, it's just to what extent that thermal bridging is there. So with that vapor barrier on the walls, the insulation is much better. So that's a little bit about the walls. So that's number one. The way the walls are built with that vapor barrier, with the foam insulation, even though it is not a full composite wall like the other Pauses, it is very good for insulation. Now, I want to give you a little history about Pause. Welcome to Storytime with Brandon. I want to tell you a little bit about the history of Pause and our relationship with Pause. Now, we met Pause at the Virginia Overland Expo for the first time in October of 2022, where they had two of their very first models there, the Pause XC 20.3 and the Pause XC 20.2. One of the main things that really stood out to us when we first met Pause is first, their dedication to making it one of the best units on the market. And when we first saw the Pause, we knew that was evident in their product. There was also a couple things we noticed that could have been improved. And thanks to Pause and the team over there and Maynard's vision, they made those things come to life. The first Pause units that came out were more premium, all aluminum cabinetry. They had composite walls and airbag suspension. So we just talked about the walls, so that's the first thing I want to dive into is the composite walls. People often have the question, what's the difference between the insulation on a composite wall versus the construction of the Reboot wall that we just talked about? Now, that was one of the main differences that happened when Pause started making the Reboot line, is that change of wall construction. Composite walls are strong. There's no aluminum in the frame of those walls. There's no wood in that entire trailer. So there's definitely some benefits to the composite wall. the insulation is also really good. With the Reboot walls, you get a little bit thicker of a wall, you get a little bit more dense insulation, and we're gonna put it to the test. Maybe in future videos, we'll put the Pause and the Reboot side by side. The other thing with Pause is when they first came out with that XC 20.3 and 20.2, they actually weren't a Four Seasons trailer. So when we met with them, we said, hey, if you really wanna be one of the best off-road trailers on the market, make it a Four Seasons trailer. And they did. They started making changes on the Pause, started ducting heat down into the underbelly, started ducting the Truma Vario heat throughout the trailer, which really improved its four-season capability. And the Reboot, which we're looking at today, is no different. If you get the upgraded Truma package, you'll get ducted heat into the underbelly where it will keep the tanks warm. Now, let's get underneath this thing so I can show you this underbelly. So I'm gonna get on the snowy ground here. So this is actually one of the first features that the original Pauses had, which was a covered underbelly, diamond plated, originally for the purpose of protecting it from punctures, from rocks, or whatever else you're hitting while off-roading. The other advantage to having covered tanks is the ability to keep them warm in cold weather. So what they've actually started doing is using the Truma Vario heat and ducting it throughout the trailer, but also sending one of the ducts down into this underbelly, which helps keep the tanks warm. Now, if you're new to RVing, I probably should have said this earlier, but when you go below freezing in a normal RV, let's say it's not fitted for Four Seasons, what will happen if you have water in your tanks or in your lines is those lines will crack, they'll leak, your tanks will crack, leak, break, and then you're replacing your entire plumbing system in your RV. The reason why most people stop camping in the winter, especially in RVs, is because their trailer is not a Four Seasons trailer. Our industry, the overland industry, the off-grid, off-road RV industry, really appreciates a good Four Seasons trailer because it allows them to camp any time of year. And a sneaky tip from here at ROA is winter is actually the best time to camp because there's no crowds, you have no problem getting spaces, and it's just peaceful and quiet. Now, there's some annoying things like cold weather, which is why you get a Four Seasons trailer. This underbelly is versatile because, like I said, protects from punctures, but also keeps that heat in that's ducted there. Now, the tanks also have heat pads placed on them that are essentially, think of a heat pad that you use at home when you have some back pain or some cramps. The heat pad that's on these tanks works similar to that. It just wraps around the tank and keeps it warm, keeps it from freezing. So that's number two. We got the walls, we got the underbelly that's heated. Let's go inside and let's look at the components that keep this thing warm. Okay, now we're gonna go inside and talk about three components that are all from Truma that help make this a Four Seasons trailer. Now, I've been using the term Four Seasons and not winter capable for a reason, and I'm gonna show you that inside. You may be asking, why is the door open? Why is the window open? We're trying to get it as cold as we can inside before doing the next part of this video, which is the heat test. So let's hop inside and I'll show you those components. All right, welcome inside. I usually say it's comfortable in here, but it's actually kind of cold. I guess that's what we get for leaving the windows and door open. The floor is really cold on my feet. So I want to talk about the components. So all of the components in this unit are from Truma. Now, in our Reboot full tour, we cover the base options for the Reboot and the premium options. Now, the Truma AC and furnace is one of the options you can get. And I say it's an option that's well worth it because it allows you to camp all year round. The other cool thing about the Reboots is the Garmin system. So this tablet is here installed in the trailer. You can also use your phone to control it. So I could be driving in the truck and be monitoring my power and controlling some things. Now you can see here inside temp, it says it's 35. We're hoping to get it a little colder than that. But the point of this test isn't to see how low we can go. It's to see how quickly we can go from a cold temperature that's not comfortable to camp in to a comfortable 72 degrees. In the future, in the coming weeks, we're gonna go somewhere, hopefully in the single digits, and see how we can push this trailer and see how it does. So now going to the Garmin, you can see here I have 99%, 35 degrees in here. I can control my lights, I can control my inverter, I'll control the AC here. The reason I'm mentioning AC right now, even though it's cold, is this unit does great in hot temperatures as well. Usually if you get good insulation, it's going to be good for hot and cold. The Truma AC is super efficient and then does a great job of cooling down this unit. And the great thing about this unit is it does a good job keeping in that cool air once you got it. So control lights, you can see water tanks. We're doing this test, no water in the tanks. When we take it to cold temperatures, we're actually going to put water in the tanks and see if we can still run the water. We can control the inverter and our suspension. Now, the other thing from Truma that actually helps this thing be winter capable is the Truma AquaGo. So the Truma AquaGo is the water heater, but what Pause has done is put a recirculating pump in there so it keeps recirculating the hot water throughout the lines. So what that does is keeps warm water in the lines, and if there's warm water in the lines, it's less likely to freeze. Now, before we start this test, I did talk about how it's a ducted furnace. So I want to show you the ducts, and then I want to close these windows, get that Truma on, and then we'll see how long it takes to warm up. My feet are, I got socks on, but they're freezing. So I'm going to shut this window here. These windows are great. They're actually another feature of the winter capability that I was going to forget to mention, but they're a dual pane window. So they're actually better than glass as far as insulation goes. They're also less likely to break. Now for the first duct, it is actually right here, but this is for your bed area. So it will come up here and it will warm up this entire area. Pause has been really thoughtful about the ducting. There's 3 total heat ducts in this trailer compared to a standard RV you'll find on a big boy lot, which just has 1 output. Those work fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those, but the ducted heat is kind of just a step above that kind of evenly distributes the heat throughout the trailer. So coming back here, you also have a duct for your main area. Right here is a pretty awesome booth. They did a great job with this booth. It fits 4 adults and it turns into a bed. And so if somebody is sleeping here or you're enjoying your meal, you got a duct right here under the fridge that will output heat into this whole area. So it's kind of split into sections of 3. So a third of the trailer being the bed has a duct. This next third, the kitchen and booth area, has a duct here. And then when you got to do your business, you don't want cold bumps. I used the pit toilet over there and it was a little cold. So that's why you have an RV, right? So you don't have to deal with that. So down here in the bathroom, you have a duct right there heating it. Now there's 3 ducts you can see, and then there's one that's hidden behind the walls that is actually shooting down into Underbelly like we mentioned. So over here, let's shut this window. Oh, don't forget this one. Close that one. And please get warm. Okay. Yeah, it's not warm. Okay. Now let's go to the Truma controls for the furnace. I'll show you a little bit how that works. We have some more in-depth videos that we'll try to link below that we did on the Pause 16.4. Should work pretty much the same, but let's look at that. Now to the Truma VarioHeat, which is the furnace in this unit. It's controlled here with this Truma controls. Like I mentioned, have a more in-depth video. Go check that out if you have a Truma and are looking for some tips on how to use it. But right here, we just have the one option for the furnace. Little RV with a thermometer. Click in. Right now, it's off, obviously. So the thing I love about Truma is I can dial in from 40 degrees all the way up to 86. So let's say I'm going to do some winter camping and I have my RV in my driveway. I might not want the heat on full blast, but I can set it at 40 to keep those tanks warm and water lines warm. Because whatever heat I select here is also being shot into the underbelly and across all the water lines. So for this test, we're going to go to 72. I don't know why, it just feels like a good temperature. And then I click in to set it. Now there's some other options here, over here on the fan. Auto, which will turn the furnace on, and when it gets temp, we'll shut off. There's night mode, which just has a little bit lower fan speed, so it's not quite as loud. And then boost, which will get it up to temp a lot quicker. Now, if I was real life camping right now, I'd probably do boost mode just to get it up to temp really fast. But I'm gonna go auto because for this test, we're actually gonna leave the heat running even after we leave this place and keep it at our office and see how long we can run on one propane tank. So we're good there, good there. Perfect. There's some other settings like timers, so I can have it turn on at a certain time and turn off. But for this test, we're just gonna leave it running and see what happens. Back up here to the Truma, we were at 35, now we're at 38. So I'm gonna pull out my phone and start a timer right here. And we're gonna see how long it takes to get up to, let's say 70 degrees. I have it set at 72, but let's see how long it takes to get to 70. It's already going up a little bit. So stay tuned. We'll try to do a midway update when it gets to around 55. And then we'll do a final update when it hits its temperature. And then we're gonna leave this running and we'll do one more update to end the video showing you how long one propane tank lasted. So 30 seconds in. Okay, update. We're 15 minutes in and it still says we're at 42. Haven't gone up much. So what I'm gonna do is put this on boost. Let's see if that makes a difference. We do have another thermometer, so depending on where that sensor is for the temperature on the Garmin, we'll just keep an eye on that. But about 15 minutes in. Okay, we got our other thermometer. This says 47, this says 43. So we'll just see which one hits 70 first. Okay, we're an hour in. Let me open up that stopwatch. Right at an hour. We're at 67 degrees on this one and 71 here. So we're pretty much up to temp. We don't have much more time to stay up here. So we're gonna drive this unit back down, keep the heater on, and see where it's at when we get back. I'm gonna keep that stopwatch going because it's gonna be important for the test on how long we can go on one propane tank. I wanna know something, and that is when a trailer's really good with insulation, it's also really good at keeping what's in here. So when we cooled this trailer down, opening up all the windows and trapped all that cold air in here, that heater's having to work a little bit harder. Now, before we go to the next part, there's one comment I want to read. If you want to learn more about these units, a great place to go is the Pause Reboot trailer community on Facebook. And there's people there, owners, people that are looking for them, asking questions, sharing stories. There's a comment from Rich Nolan. So shout out Rich Nolan if you're watching this. He says, want to update you against an earlier post where I complained about the lower R value insulation after watching the wall construction video. So he made a post complaining about not using an even thicker insulation for the foam inside the walls. But then he says, while after camping for a week in mid-teens, I used one full 20-pound tank and a little bit of the second and was absolutely warm and toasty. I had the thermostat set to 70 the whole time. In fact, once it hit 70, I switched to night mode. I am willing to bet this unit would do just fine in single digits. It's for sure a Four Seasons camper. So thanks, Rich Nolan. We're gonna see if we can go 1 week on a 20-pound propane tank. We're gonna put that to the test. I think we're actually gonna do exactly what Rich did and put it at 70 degrees on night mode as soon as we get this thing up to temp. So stay tuned for this test. I know this might be a long one, but I know a lot of people are really looking to see what these trailers can do in the winter. So we're gonna head back down to the office. We'll tell you how cold it is down there and we'll do some updates every now and then. Quick update here. We're 4 hours and 17 minutes in. It's about 4:30 o'clock. It's about 4:30 o'clock. So what we did in the meantime is we set up these things. We've used these before. These are called a hobo. What it does is it logs every 10 minutes the temperature. So we have one inside and one outside. That way we're gonna be able to pull up a graph at the end of this video and it will show you when it got colder, how did the temperature maintain inside. So right now, 39 degrees outside here in the valley. So this is gonna log every 10 minutes. And then I got one inside. So let's go in there, see how it's feeling. I stepped in here about 30 minutes ago. And what I did is, it was up to temp. So as you can see on the Garmin, it's showing 73. On this other hobo we have here, it's about 74.6. So obviously there's gonna be a little variance just because the temp sensor for the Garmin is right here. Then I have this one right there. I set this, I don't know if I mentioned, to night mode. So the way you do that is just go to the settings, there's auto, night, and boost. So set it to night mode. and we're at 72. So we're just gonna see how long this can run. I'm not claiming that we're gonna see extreme temperatures, but we're gonna be below freezing temperatures, especially in the evening and overnight. So it'll be interesting to see at night when it gets colder, does the Reboot maintain its temperature? We'll probably do a check-in or two before we end this video. I don't want this to be too repetitive or boring, so the main recap will be at the end and we'll show you how it performs. 28 hours in and we're back at the Reboot. It's currently 34 degrees, at least here in the shade. I'm like starting to shiver, but let's go inside and see how it's keeping up. I do want to tell you, earlier today, we did check on it, and after learning some things, we changed one of the settings on the Truma. We'll show you. Let's go inside real quick. Okay, it's warmer in here, 65. This says pretty much 64. I don't know if you can see those. We have a lot of thermometers, and then the Garmin. What does that say, Chris?
67.
Okay, 67. So the thing that we changed is on the Truma, we had it on night mode. So if you go over here to like the fan speeds, there's auto, night, and boost. Boost is only applicable when you're first starting it or it's cold in here. We learned that night actually limits the amount of power the heater will use. So it's kind of like an eco mode that I think they had on previous Trumas. But with that night mode, you might not be able to get the full use out of your camper. Now, I think it stayed through the night. I mean, when we have that chart, we'll know for sure, but I think it stayed in the 60s throughout the night. So believe it did okay, but we're gonna put it on auto now and see if we can get a more consistent temperature because it's not trying to save power. It's still on and still blowing heat. So something I wanna try, because we've been noticing in the past 24 hours, we're consistently a little bit under 72 degrees. Now, the Truma has a setting where you can actually set an offset. So if you're finding pretty often that you're getting a lower or higher temperature than what you're setting it at, then you can set that offset. But what I'm gonna do to try to dial this in is, right now I'm 5 degrees, according to the Garmin, under 72. So I set it at 72 and I'm at 67. So I'm gonna go to 77 and see if that helps me get to 72 like I want. So 77, push that in. Oh yeah, it just went up a little bit more. So that's a good sign, because this sensor here that's connected to the Truma, it's not going to be 100% accurate every time. So that's why they programmed in the offset. I'm just going to show you that real quick. So over here in the settings, right here, offset. So then if I click this in again, I can offset the temperature all the way to -10. So if I found that it was 5 degrees off, I could do this. I'm going to leave it right now and just let it run at 77. I'm going to double check that that's the case. On auto at 77. Let's see if we get more consistent temperatures. When we get that chart back, we'll be able to see at 4 p.m. on Wednesday. That's when we changed it, and we'll see if there's noticeable difference. I just want to test this out for you guys, so that way if you have a Reboot or a Truma system in general and you're finding that you're not getting the temperatures that you're dialing in here, you can do that offset, but also you can learn from me and my experience. That way when you use it, you won't have these issues. Okay, I'm back. It's actually a week later from when we started. The only unfortunate thing is we weren't able to finish this test on Friday, so about 3 or 4 days into the test, this unit had to get transported, so we weren't able to finish. I do have the propane tank we were using. We're gonna try this hot water trick, see if we can see where it's at. Real quickly, I wanna talk about the graphs and charts we got from the Hobo. You can see that first day or so when we had it on night mode, it actually got down to around 60 degrees at night, so not what we were looking for. But we did learn, like we said, at night mode, it reduces the wattage it can use. My opinion is I don't want it 72 degrees in my trailer at night. It's a little too stuffy for me. So actually 60 is good at night because you're under the blankets, you're camping, it's comfortable. But when we switch it to auto, you can see that little rise on the graph here. So as you can see, it maintained pretty well, but there's these 2 spikes. These actually happened in the middle of the day where it got to around 36 degrees Fahrenheit outside. We made a couple mistakes. So because we're in the winter, we actually don't mind if it gets a little warmer inside. But in the summer, we wouldn't want to lose the cold air and we wouldn't want it to get hotter inside. So there's 2 reasons this happened. One is we had all the windows open, no shades down. And so this skylight, when it was the middle of the day and the sun was over this trailer, that's what was heating up our thermometers and heating up the inside of the trailer. So we should have closed the shade to get a more consistent temperature inside without the sun heating it up and throwing off these numbers. temperatures, but that's what those spikes are. In this test, because it's cold, we don't mind so much that it gets warmer inside, but honestly in the Reboot, the weakest points are probably going to be the windows. So if you're trying to keep the temperature inside and not have any of that outside air affect it, close the shades and close the windows. In the future, like I said, we're going to take this out to some cold temperatures and really see how it does in those extreme colds, and we're going to put water in the tanks to make sure everything runs. So let's see how much propane we used. We ran this test for about 4 days, so let's try this hot water trick here. Yeah, so if I pour the hot water over this, I should be able to feel where it's cold, and then that's the propane line. It's warmer here and it's colder here.
You feel where it differentiates?
Yeah, like right here, right on the line. Yeah, because that's warm, that's cold. Yeah, like right on the line. So about half the tank. We went 4 days, used half the tank. To me, that says in the 20s to 30s, you can probably go about 7 to 8 days on one tank. Luckily, the Reboot has 2 propane tanks, so you can probably go about 2 weeks in cold temperatures. Now, we're gonna have to test this again when it's 10 or below, but in like the teens to 20s and 30s, half a tank, 4 days. So yeah, so I'm pretty impressed with the Reboot. If you wanted to do this at home, there's a couple ways you can check to see how much propane. You can do the calculations and you can weigh it when it's full and then weigh it once you're done and you want to see how much is left. You can do the hot water trick when it's cold outside without it hooked up like this. It's a little more difficult, but yeah, my line is just right underneath this line. The other option is if you're running it, so say you're out camping and using it, you can do the hot water trick and it actually should like frost over so you can really see that line. Didn't have the opportunity to do that today, but overall, my thoughts on the Reboot. Really winter capable trailer. It took a little longer to warm up than I thought it would, but I think a lot of that had to do with us trapping all that cold air in there. Once it got up to temp, did a really good job maintaining that temperature for a few solid days. And for the size of the unit, it did really well. I think those 3 ducts really help. But yeah, if you're looking for a 4 seasons trailer, looking for a trailer that can get you off grid so you can enjoy camping any time of year, the Reboot is a great choice. If you want to see a Reboot in person, we do have 4 stores across the country. One in Utah, one in Arizona, one in Colorado Springs, and over on the East Coast in South Carolina. Down below in the description, we have phone numbers for each of those stores, so be sure to reach out to your closest ROA Experience Center. And if you want to learn more as well without coming in person, check us out online at www.rvsofamerica.com, and we hope to see you on the next adventure.